All right. So here we are with my colleague and friend, Patti DeNucci. Patti, how many years has it been since we last saw each other?
I'm embarrassed. Oh my gosh, it's probably been 12, 13, 10,
Has
10 for
it?
sure. Let's say 10. Has it
I
been
think it's
10?
probably been 10
Yeah.
because we met at eWomen Network, and the last eWomen Network event that I went to was in 2014. So I'm not sure what your last event was.
I think my last one was, it might have been around then, 2013 or 2014. So I think you're
Okay,
absolutely
so
right.
it has been a decade,
It's been a long time. It's been a long
but
time.
God bless Mark Zuckerberg, I say tongue in
Oh
cheek. We're still
gosh.
connected on Facebook.
I know. And I see what you're doing and I see, golly, we've grown up a lot in the last,
We have. Well,
let's
I'm
call it growing
thrilled to
up, shall
have
we?
you. Yeah, we've grown up. We're like a fine wine. We just get better with age.
That's right.
Well, I'm thrilled to have you here and to chat with you about your reading habits and your favorite books. And I also want to talk to you about your new book, More Than Just Talk. I remember your first book, The Intentional Networker, and I remember reading that and how helpful it was for me, someone who I always like to joke that I'm an introverted extrovert. Put me on stage and I am off to the races, but send me into a room full of strangers and I just want to hide in the corner. So I remember
Yeah.
reading that book and it was really helpful all those years ago. So I'm anxious to talk about your new book too.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm excited to
So,
talk about it.
so, you wrote this book and it's like a tome, right? It's like 400 and some
The
pages.
new one.
So yeah, the new one. So my first question for you is what are your reading habits like? Like as an author, how important is reading to you?
It's very important. I don't know, reading is so great. I love talking about reading. I mean, I'm a writer, but I love talking about reading. But back in college, when I was exploring a career in communications and taking all these writing courses, one of our very first writing professors, and this probably goes back to high school too, but I distinctly remember being in a writing class and the professor saying, if you're going to be a good writer, you need to be a good reader. And you need to
Mm.
be particular about what you read. Don't read, I mean, read something for sure, but if you can read authors and writers who you really resonate with, that will help your writing. And I have found that to be absolutely true.
It's interesting that you say that because James Clear, who wrote Atomic Habits, talks about the fact that when he was prepping to write Atomic Habits, he researched books that had sold over 1 million copies. And he
Mm.
bought books that had sold over 1 million copies and then basically deconstructed what they had in common, from the way the chapters were laid out to the way the titles were written, so that he could look for patterns and best practices before he wrote his book. And I don't know if
Brilliant.
you know this, but Atomic Habits has sold 10 million copies.
Man, that's amazing.
Incredible,
That's
incredible.
amazing. That is amazing. But what a
So,
great way to decide how you're going to write your book is let's go look at the masters. They do that. They have you do that in art school, in writing school, is let's deconstruct the masters and then add your own personal touch.
yeah. And, I find it really interesting because I've also heard from other people that you shouldn't read certain books if you're going to write about that topic because you don't want to steal somebody else's ideas. So you have to be careful. But
Yeah.
then I've also heard from people that someone like Tony Robbins is the ultimate synthesizer. And
Yeah.
he really is writing books full of everybody else's ideas, but he's giving credit in terms of where the ideas came from.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting when you are a writer who is also a reader, like how do you kind of organize all of that, right? And what are your
Oh,
beliefs? And there's so many different ways of doing it.
golly, do you have a bottle of wine? We can just sit here and talk about this. It's so interesting. There's a guy that lives here in Austin, Texas, and maybe you've heard of him, Austin Kleon. He
Mm-mm.
has a book called Steal Like an Artist. And it's a
Mm.
short little book. It's got cute little drawings in it. He's done several. He One of my goals is to have coffee with him, but he's hard to get to. But he made it very clear to me. Plagiarizing is different from using someone's idea as inspiration that you can massage it and tweak it to make it your own, or cite an idea or a concept and then, again, cite where it came from. And I did a combination of both of those when I was working on my books. And, you mentioned when we were doing our little pre-talk, you mentioned, our mutual dearly departed friend, Jan King. She used to tell me, remind me, I guess is the word, that you could give a writing assignment to 1,000 people, write about, fill in the blank, here's a topic, 1,000 people write about it, create a book about it, and it would be, each one would be different. They'd have some overlapping features, of course, and best practices and all that, but we're all individuals and we have to put our little spin on things. Yeah.
I like to say that reading is like masterminding with the author, because the ideas that come into your mind based on your own life experience and what the author has to say help you to formulate your own insights. And so it's really, really
that's absolutely
powerful.
true.
There's another writer who's in your neck of the woods, Ryan Holiday.
Is that right?
Yeah, I'm not sure where he is in Texas, but he's written a bunch of New York Times bestselling books, and he's got a bookstore. I think it's called the Painted Bookshop. Anyways,
oh, interesting.
I have to find it now. I'm like looking on Instagram.
Well, there are literally hundreds of thousands of writers in Texas, and a lot of them in Austin.
It's called Painted Bookshop.
The Painted Bookshop.
Is that it? Painted Bookshop. And it is in Bastrop, Texas.
Oh, well, that's just right outside of town on the other side of the airport.
Well, you need to look him up. You would love his books.
Take a little road trip and go out to Bastrop. I love it out there. It's really, really beautiful.
He wrote Discipline is Destiny, The Ego is the Enemy. He writes a lot about Stoicism. So I think you would enjoy his books. So what are your habits around reading? I always ask people, because people always say to me, Lisa, how do you find time to read? And I always say, I don't find time to read, I make time to read. Because I carve out time each day specifically for reading. What are your reading habits? What do you do to ensure that you read?
My reading habits are, I do like to read some in the morning with my cup of coffee. I'm in my bathrobe. I'm in my favorite chair. I have gone through a lot of daily readers. I've done Mark Nepo's Book of Awakening. I've done John Jant's The Self-Reliant Entrepreneur. But right now, if I can do this, I'm reading this little book, Don't Worry, Make Money, by Richard Carlson. And what I love about this book, very briefly, is it's sort of your mindset around wealth. It's what is the mindset that attracts wealth? And I'm learning that it's happiness. It's a person who's taking care of themselves, who is healthy and has an upbeat look on life and isn't a worried workaholic who is just no fun to be around. When people really enjoy you, they want to do business with you. But anyway, back to the habits. Morning, I try to read some. I always have books in my office by my easy chair, so that if I'm just need a break, like I've done 2 podcasts today, so later on after some lunch and a nap, I'm probably just going to sit and read this afternoon and get inspired there. And then I try to read before bed. And I can have, I don't know about you, Lisa, I can have 4 or 5 books going at the same time, and somehow I can keep them all straight.
Yeah, so, I'm the same.
I come from a family of readers. In fact, my mom and dad were such prolific readers in high school that their very large graduating class was split in 2, and they moved the upper half of the class, upper meaning the ones that were, were getting the best grades, they moved them up to the next graduating class. So they graduated a year early, and they both say it's because they were big readers.
I read regularly. Like, I'm the same as you. I read every morning in my house coat with a cup of coffee and a dog on my lap, sometimes 2. And I read at night. I usually don't read business books before bed though, because they get my mind going. Right now I'm listening to Spare on Audible as I fall
Mm,
asleep. It's really interesting listening to Prince Harry tell his story. Um,
yes.
and I have to admit, it's not helping me fall asleep. It's making me stay awake because I'm very engaged and interested in what he has to say. So our habits are very, very similar. I too can read
Hmm.
multiple books at any given time because
Yeah.
I always have my thought readers commitment, the book club that I run. So once a month we read a book together. So every week I have a commitment of a certain number of pages that I need to read. But sometimes there's another book that I want to read. So I'm reading books in between my reading for my thought readers books. So I hear you.
Oh, yeah. And
So
then, going to the gym, there's always a podcast going on in my, in my earphones.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So it's such a good habit. It's just a
Mhm.
huge good habit.
Yeah, it's funny that book you just mentioned, Don't Worry, Make Money. My old boss, when I was first hired by ClearNet back in 1997, gave me that book. So that
And
book's been around for a long
it's
time.
not a brand new book. And I think that's a point I want to make is a book doesn't have to be the latest book to be the right book.
Yeah.
Yeah, it says 1997. Perfect.
Yeah.
Um, a book can be an old favorite. It can be an old a book that's so old that it's gone on, what do they call it, public domain, like, Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for
Yeah.
Meaning. You can download that for free. You can get a PDF of that anywhere.
Mhm.
Some of the Dale Carnegie books.
Yeah.
I mean, and you even talked about Stoicism. There's, oh my gosh, there's some amazing Greek philosophers
Mhm.
that are as timely today as they ever were.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So why don't you tell us what your top 3 books were
Okay.
that impacted your life? So tell us what they are, tell us one at a time, and tell us why that book was impactful for you. I
Okay.
think
Well,
I looked at your list and there's only one that I'm familiar with. So
and again, if you want to scramble my brain, ask me, give me an assignment like that. I mean, I was literally looking at all my bookshelves and going, well, maybe it's this one, maybe it's this one. And I picked these 3 because I think right now they give a good snapshot of what I'm about. And the one about Don't Worry, Make Money made the list because
mhm,
I feel like it's reminding me to be my purest, happiest self, and to
mhm,
just everything's going to be fine. Just relax. There's a million terrible things going on in the world, and I've just spent a pile of money publishing another book, but it's all good. It's all going to be fine. And so that has brought me back to this sense of joy. Another one, and maybe this is the one, is Julia Cameron's The Artist's Way, and this is
mhm,
the workbook that I picked this one because it is so full of, notes and highlighting. And I think there were sticky notes on here. And I know I kept this book at my side throughout the time that I was working on my new book. I mean, I just had to get back into that creative place. Oh, and I started painting again, which this is my abstract artwork on the cover here. So I
I
got
know
back
it's
into
beautiful.
painting. Thank you. So I love that book. I love Julia Cameron. I have her daily reader. I would love
Do you
to
do
buy like
morning pages?
morning, yes, morning page. When I'm not reading, I do morning pages. That's a
Mhm,
great habit. And then
mhm.
I usually have to burn them after.
So for those of you who don't know, The Artist's Way, one of the things the author teaches you to do is morning pages. So she encourages you to write 3 pages a day. And it doesn't matter what you write. It can just be, I don't know what to say over and over and over again,
Mm-hmm,
but to just basically empty your mind when you
mm-hmm.
wake up in the morning with whatever is going on, the random chatter in your mind, so that you can actually get to, I guess, the good stuff.
The
I know
good
that
stuff.
when Gretchen died, my sweet little dachshund 6 years ago, I did a ton of morning pages. It's like that's how
Mm-hmm,
I found my sanity every morning. It was just,
mm-hmm.
and there were some days where all I wrote is "I'm so sad, I'm so sad, I'm so sad."
Yeah.
But it really helped me kind of get the junk in my head going in the morning.
Yeah. And sometimes it helps you get some
Practice.
good ideas out. Like I
Mhm.
literally have under my desk, I have my feet propped up on one of these file boxes that's sort of disguised as an ottoman. And it is
Mhm.
crammed with notebooks. Some are notes I took at conferences like
Mhm.
eWomen. or at the NSA conference. Some are notes I've taken at presentations here in Austin. Some are notes I've just written in the morning. And I often pull out a random notebook just to see what's in there. It's like, oh my gosh, here's a great idea for a blog. Here's a great idea for another book, which I don't need to be working on right now. But it's interesting what comes out of you. The good stuff can come out too, with morning pages. The other practice she suggests is to take yourself on an artist's date once a week, and it has to be solo, and it can be anything. Like for me, honestly, post-pandemic, getting back out into the world and going shopping in a store that's well stocked and beautifully merchandised and designed is a very visually stimulating thing for me. So it doesn't mean I have to buy anything. It's just, God, get out of the house and go look at some pretty things. So she suggests that too. But I just love her whole approach to creativity and, recovering your sense of power and being mindful and careful about who you share your early creative work with. Like, don't share an early draft of something with someone who's going to be overly critical, because that will just get into your head. So I think she's spot on, and she has so many additional books. She's very prolific. So can I move on to the next one?
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
So this one, I forget where I even heard about this, but I pulled this one because it's called Brilliance by Design by Vicki Halsey. And it's a book about speaking, teaching, creating learning experiences. Let's put it that way. It could be workshops. And I have sticky notes and I have highlighting, and she's got worksheets in here. And I remember when I was first putting together presentations and workshops and all those things. In fact, I forgot I have this book. I was so glad you gave me this assignment, Lisa, because it's time for me to pull this out again and
What is it?
revisit.
Brilliance by Design?
Brilliance by Design, Vicki Halsey. And I don't know if it's showing up backwards or forwards,
Yeah.
but I know somebody recommended this to me, and the woman that wrote it is at the time, she was Dr. Vicki Halsey, Vice President of Applied Learning for the Ken Blanchard Company. So, but she's a person that will help you create a presentation where people actually learn, where they're not just entertained or, God forbid, bored.
Right.
They're engaged and they're learning. It's creating sticky learning experiences. So that one really helped me when I was first speaking. Probably more so than any other. I mean, obviously you learn things through the years from a lot of different people, but that one really was hard hitting. And I can tell there's the sticky notes remind me of, oh my gosh, I think I remember that. It had been like 8 years ago when I was putting together that workshop.
That's
So
funny.
it's timeless. It's timeless.
And those 3 books are so different.
Well, they are. And I kind of picked them that way on purpose, but they're books that I think really help shape me. But there are so many. I mean, you know this. Every time you read a book, it's like you made a new friend, you you attracted a new mentor who shared something with you. And some wise friend of mine said something like, you're going to absorb the wisdom that you need right now. Like, have you ever gone back and read a book a second or third time while you're in a different place?
Yes. I've even had a book that I couldn't get through. And then when I finally picked it up, so Think and Grow Rich, I could not read that book to save my life. And then finally one day I picked it up. I was like, I have to read this book. And it was the perfect time to read that book.
Yeah, I've had that experience too, where it's like, I'm not getting this person at all. And I've gone back and given it a second chance or a third chance. And they come to us right when we're ready, so I don't know, they're my pals, all my books all around the house, and I don't know if you knew this, but somewhere there's a piece of data. I don't have the study, which kind of embarrasses me, but people who have a lot of books in their homes tend to be more successful people, and that's measured not just from happiness, that's measured from monetary success, and their children pick up the habit and they go on to be more successful, and then there's that whole part about reading to your kids every night. That's a whole another thing. But I love being surrounded by books.
So do I. And we are in transition right now. So we are in a rental property while our home is being built, and all of my books are in boxes. I have a small little stack of books over there. Like there's probably 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 books right over there on the shelf. Oh no, 20 books over there on the shelf. I just see 2 more underneath. Oh, and then there's 1, 2 here, 3 here.
I know they're all over my office.
Everywhere. It's like every day Amazon's dropping something off because I have no bookshelves. I have no books. So I need my books. It's like they're so such a big part of my life. And, you know, when I look at my life and the fact that I didn't finish high school, I really do attribute a lot of the success that I've had to my love of reading. I think that, you know, there's many different ways to educate yourself, and reading is one of the formats or the vehicles that's worked really well for me.
Absolutely. And, you know, when I was working on my new book and my other book too, I mean, I insisted on putting my resources in the back of my new book, and both my editor and the book interior designer, like, are you sure you want all this in here? It's like, yes, I absolutely do. Part of me, I'll freely admit that part of me wanted to show off at how much I read. And I'm not going to say I read all the books I cite cover to cover, but they were huge resources to me, and a lot of articles by a lot of different people. And I think it shows the breadth and depth of my research. But I think it's also, these are books that people can go off and, like, if this topic interests you, go off and look at these places where you can learn even more. You can dive deeper into a topic that, you know, of interest to you.
Yeah, I am so guilty of that when I'm reading a book and they cite another book and, like, on Amazon, you know, adding it to my shopping cart. So let's talk a little bit. Let's shift gears from reading habits to writing habits.
Okay.
So, you know, I have written 2 books, but I really don't feel like I've written a book, if that makes sense. So the first book that I wrote, I worked with somebody who helped me to write, and they did a lot of interviewing and transcribing and writing, and I did a lot of editing.
Okay.
And then my second book I wrote with Alan Weiss, and I did a lot of just writing as in a dump on the topics, and then Alan formatted and merged our ideas together and then would send the chapters to me. So I don't really feel like I have written a book as in from start to finish myself yet.
Well,
though I have 2 published books. So I'm really curious. I'm always curious about people's writing habits. And then when I look at your book and I see how big it is, I think, oh my gosh, you have to have 75,000 words in here easily.
Oh yeah, I think that's about, that's almost exactly right. Good job.
Okay. So, you know, I aspire to write a 30,000 word book, like a skinny book. And so when I see somebody who's written this big of a book, I want to know, what are your habits around writing? How do you write?
Ooh, well, I think this particular book, and, you know, this was not, I would say, if you're looking for a super efficient way to write a book, my process wasn't the most efficient, but it was necessary. Like, I literally thought, since I'd already written a book, I thought, how hard can it be to write the prequel, which is what I consider this book to be? I was getting a lot of questions after people read The Intentional Network, are getting a lot of questions about, yeah, but how about the conversation part? How about just the interaction itself? And I thought, oh, I'm just going to whip out another little prequel to The Intentional Networker. And I had preconceived notions on what I thought I knew. And if I had done the process of writing out the outline and the subpoints and all that, I would have missed the boat completely on what I wanted to do. And so there are people that write that way, that do the outline and then they just fill in the blanks. This became a much more exploratory learning journey, where the more I started reading, the more I realized I didn't know. So this book took 8+ years. I was almost literally drowning in material, but I thought this material was really important. So when I finally hired and fired several people to help me, and then went to my dear friend Susan Pretty, who we were both marketing communications writers 30 years ago, and we met at a freelancers meeting, and she literally covered for me while I was out on maternity leave. We have a similar brain. She's just a little more organized. And so I finally hired her, and she helped me reorganize the book and trim, keep the personality in there without losing the credibility. And she just did an amazing job. So I think writing a book, there's 100 different ways to do it.
But how did you do it? How did you do it? What was your process? If you didn't start with the outline,
yeah,
give us some tactics. You did research,
right.
You developed your outline. When did you write? How did you write? Like,
okay.
Walk us through what your approach was.
Okay. I did a lot of reading. I had on my bulletin board, I literally had areas that I felt were important to conversation. Like, what are the benefits? What are the obstacles? You know, what's the problem? Like, why should we be doing this? What's the problem? What do we need to do to become better at conversation? And I used my sticky note 3x5 note card map on my bulletin board to guide me. And then I'm not going to say it was systematic, because you'd start on a topic and realize it's connected to this other one. And so I kept collecting material and putting it in buckets. Literally, I would read about it and then I'd write about it. And I just, following the artist's way, following Julia Cameron, I would just get the information on the paper. And then I would go back and sort out. It's a lot of junk when you do it that way. That's why you have to go through and be brutal with yourself. Find the really important key points, find the patterns, find the areas that are contradictory to each other, which when you're really diving into a topic, you find different opinions. And my choice is, which opinion do I believe in, or do I share them both? So you're constantly making choices. I write the best in the morning. And then I also write after I've had a workout, some lunch, a nap. I hop back on in the afternoon around 2 o'clock. So I would probably have about a 5-hour work day.
So
but I think for me, just having the freedom to just get words on the paper, start there. Don't edit yourself the first time through. I think that's really important.
You have 43 chapters in this book. Each chapter is approximately 8 to 10 pages in length. So when you were writing these ideas, were you just basically writing mini chapters and throwing them in your bin and then going back and looking at the chapters and organizing later? Is that what you were doing?
Yes. I mean, I literally, my very first idea for this, which I was able to talk about with Jan King, our friend Jan King, before she passed away, I literally wanted to start it with just descriptive words and you know, use a word like graciousness or likability and just write about that word. And she thought that was a great idea. But I think the way we did this gave it more flow, and putting the sections together. And the sections are the logical piece. And the hard thing about writing about conversation is, you know, as you and I are talking, it's not necessarily a linear process. There's a lot of things going on in our brains. We're listening to each other. We're reacting to each other. And so writing about this topic was tough. Now, with the Intentional Networker, it was a lot more literal, where we had a chapter template, and we had files or buckets, as Jan would call them, topics that had to do with networking. And so I think you have to have some sort of organization to keep your thoughts from going all over the place. But my problem with the conversation book is there was so much more to it than I originally thought. Like this whole chapter, I have a whole section on listening. I didn't realize
you literally could have 7 books in here.
I could have 7 books, and we thought about that. And that could still happen.
Well, it could.
That could still happen.
Totally tear it apart and have, you know, separate sections.
Workshops on any of these topics. I'm doing a keynote at a luncheon where I'm just doing I think it's chapter 14. It's the 4 Ps. It's chapter 14, I think. I'm literally doing a 30-minute keynote on just that chapter. Because I think it's right for this group. So this is fodder for all kinds of things in my life right now. But writing, you know, I tend to be an artist. I tend to be creative, and I have to get it out on the paper. But then that means I need a good editor or a good developmental editor to help me organize it. So that's my process. And I would say that to all kinds of people. I think everybody has a book. Everybody has wisdom to share, stories to share. And I think for me, the most important thing is getting those on paper, even if it means getting them in a journal that you'll hand off to an editor or a transcriber.
So can I ask you another kind of crazy question? How did you organize all of that stuff on your computer? Like, did you have a folder where you just put all your book stuff, or did you have one massive document you were working from? Like, how did you,
Oh
I know
no,
that's
not
a
the mess.
really,
I had a folder and
Mhm.
we went through three, but we would get to the point where we'd say, okay, that folder's a mess. We're going to just pull the good stuff out of that folder and put it into a new folder. And I think we ended up with conversation book short chapter version 2021 is my final chapter, or is my final folder. And then each chapter became its own subfile. I
Mhm.
would never suggest working on one big, huge file, although you get there when you get close to the end.
Mhm. And
And it becomes overwhelming sometimes.
how did you not lose steam? It took 8 years. That's a long time. How
I
did you
did
not
lose
just
steam.
give up?
I did lose steam. I did lose steam. I for a number of reasons. One was I was busy speaking. And so if I was to put together a presentation and a workshop for a client, I had to put this aside and then I'd have to come back. I had thyroid surgery, which meant that, I had to get all my thyroid medication adjusted. I had like an entire year where I could hardly get off the sofa. And I would just say, anybody listening, especially if you're a woman in your middle years, if you're losing steam energetically and going into this brain fog thing, get your thyroid levels checked, because that was brutal. And then we got that figured out. And again, having an editor or a partner, like you had Alan to help you.
Mhm.
Um,
And I was
books,
afraid of him. Like I was a little bit
yeah,
afraid of him. So I was not going to not deliver, because I was not
absolutely.
going to let him tell people that I asked him to write a
No,
book and he said yes, and then I didn't do my part. So I was highly
yeah,
motivated to deliver.
absolutely. And, and I remember this phrase that I think I've seen it posted on social media several times. Just because you've stopped doesn't mean you've quit. You
Right.
can stop and rest, but don't quit. And then I
Mhm.
read John Acuff's book,
Mhm.
Done.
Finish. Oh,
Finish. Is it finish or is
finish.
it
Yeah,
done? It's
finish.
finish. I read that book and I got kind of fired up reading that. And
It's a
here's
great book.
another thing I would say is I would have liked to have had this book done. Let's see, I started working on it probably in 2014. 2016 would have been perfect. But I've had a bunch of people say to me, this book came out it just came out this year. It has come out at the perfect time. We're post-pandemic. We live in a very contentious, politically charged world. We have technology that's getting in the way of our real conversations.
Mhm.
And people say the timing's perfect. And I feel that way too. But man, it's a long road. And don't know I don't like to second guess why things happen the way they did. So I don't know what I could have done differently to get this book. So
Yeah,
yeah,
you know what? I'm not criticizing the time. If anything, I am in awe that you kept at it. And
yeah,
because
me too.
I think it's easy to start. I think
Mhm.
it's harder to start back up. And
It definitely was.
so you did that.
I
So
did
why
that.
was
Yeah.
it so important to you to write this book? Why did you keep going? Why did this matter so much?
It matters because for starters, in my experience, being able to socialize well in any kind of setting has been at the root of almost any good thing that has ever happened to me. And when I went back and started doing the research about this, like, I don't know if you're familiar with this study that has come out of Harvard. Harvard has been studying, well, researchers at Harvard, not Harvard itself. They've been studying people for their entire lives. It's called I forget the name of the study, but for 80 some years, they've been following the same people. And what they're discovering is that the biggest indicator for a happy, successful life is being able to socialize well. So if I was to go back and say, okay, what expensive problem does Patti DeNucci help solve? I hope you learn how to socialize better so that you can have a happier, more successful, more vibrant, long, beautiful life. And you can't even put a price on that.
No.
You just can't. Yeah, and there's other research that says that in big corporations, consciously or subconsciously, if people notice, if you're the people who are your bosses, your people farther up the ladder, if they notice that you can be at ease talking about almost anything at work with almost anybody, you are automatically a more valuable employee. That combined with good performance, of course. But so this
I
is,
can see that.
it's at the root of everything. It's at the root of everything.
Talk to me. I have a few questions about the book. So talk to me about the advantages of small talk, because I hear people say all the time, I hate small talk. I want to go deep.
I do too.
So what are the advantages of small talk?
Small talk is like a warm-up. It's an introduction. It's a safe place to go. Like if you went to the grocery store and you were going through the checkout line and you noticed there was, someone in line behind you that seemed, like a friendly person, and you just leaned over to that person and said, tell me your biggest life regret. That would be weird, wouldn't it?
Yes.
It'd be like embarrassing. You would probably like, whoa, what's that all about? And so small talk is just where you find common ground with each other and you acknowledge each other's presence. And the thing about small talk is we don't have to stay there. People complain to me all the time about, the small talk, it just never ends. Well, I'm here to say, you can take a proactive, in fact, you should take a proactive approach. And if you're tired of whatever you're talking about, ask a question or bring up a topic that gets you out of that small talk loop. It's up to us. We can be so empowered in our conversations. We just don't know we have, the power to change things around. Right.
So small talk is a good starting place, but it doesn't have to be the stopping place.
It doesn't have to be the stopping place. Not at all.
One of the things that you talk about in the book is how to become a better listener. So, a lot of times when you're in conversation, we interrupt each other, we cut each other off, and instead of listening, your mind goes to what you want to say, and then you're afraid you're going to lose what you're going to say, so you stop listening to the other person because you're trying to remember what you want to say, or you cut them off. So talk to us a little bit about how can people practice being better listeners when they're in conversation?
I think the very first thing we have to acknowledge is that listening is harder than talking. Talking is very expressive. It feels good. We're getting things, look at the language we use for talking, venting, getting things off our chests, getting things out in the open. It feels really good. Listening, true listening is not just hearing, but you're processing I'm processing what you're saying. I'm looking at you, which is great. I get to look at you. I get to see your facial expressions and your body language and the tone of your voice, all those things. Plus I'm processing what's going on in my own head. So there's a lot going on with listening. So it's hard. So we can't beat up ourselves too much about it. But I think a big thing we can do is, number one, just relax and slow your own mind down just a little bit to fully hear what someone is saying. If it's our turn to talk, here's a couple of interesting little tips. 40 seconds is a really nice amount of time to talk, and then stop, take a breath, let the other person jump in, or let there be silence. Let there be silence for a minute. Another one is to, in a one-on-one, always try to listen at least 60% of the time, talk 40% of the time. And this doesn't come naturally to a lot of us. Another acronym is WAIT. Why am I talking? I think I like that. We've all been around, or we've been the person that just feels compelled to fill the empty air with words. And I think being mindful is probably one of the biggest things that we can just realize, that most of us talk too much, and realize it feels really badly. It feels terrible to us when we're not heard, and it feels really good when we are heard. So we can easily become the most relaxed and fascinating person in the room by just, closing this and opening these.
So how do you help somebody who doesn't realize that they're not listening learn to be a listener?
Ooh, it's well, that's touchy. I think we can learn to interrupt people graciously. Like, I know plenty of people that will get on a roll, and I have to, like, if we're having lunch, I can think of one person in particular. I love her to pieces, but I know that she'll do most of the talking, and I almost have to reach out and touch her on the arm and say, we've been here 40 minutes and you've not stopped talking the entire time. Can I share a couple things about me? I'd love to share some news about me. I can do that with her. We can also just very almost abruptly interrupt the person who's on a roll and say, Bob, sorry to interrupt, but you said something a few minutes ago that I'd like to just comment on. Would that be okay? Most of the time, people get it. They get it and they don't take offense.
Yeah.
But I think it's our responsibility as good conversationalists to realize we probably talk too much, and let's be more proactive about listening.
I think it's interesting as a speaker. Sometimes I think you need to keep talking because nobody else is talking.
Mm-hmm.
And it could just be that you're surrounded by good listeners. And if you would just shut up for a moment, they would actually start to talk.
Yeah. And one of the techniques I offer, and this works in meetings, it works in social settings. Like, imagine that you're at a cocktail party and you're standing around in a group of 4 or 5 people, and 1 or 2 people are really doing all the talking. I think we can be a nice ally for the quieter people and say, you know what, I'd really like to hear what Jennifer has to say about this. I mean, Jennifer, tell us, you've been listening so intently to everybody. What are your thoughts? So we can be allies for each other. This is important in meetings too. You know how just you can be in meetings where 1 or 2 or 3 people are doing all the talking, and there's a lot of brain power in that room, and we're not hearing it because the other people are being more aggressive with their talking.
Right.
So I think it's up to managers and people facilitating meetings to remember that, we don't want to put people on the spot. Some people just would prefer to be more quiet, and we don't want to freak them out. But I think there's a lot of brain power that gets just plowed right over.
Yeah, I would agree. And what I want to know is, what about the shy folks? What about people who are afraid to interrupt, or they're afraid? And what about interrupting on Zoom? One of the things that I've started to try to do as a visual cue within my own team when I want to interrupt without interrupting is go like this, raise my hand. And so
Yeah.
there's a visual there that, like, I really want to say something. So I need you to wind up because I need to say something.
That
And
works
so,
in live settings too. It does. I
yeah,
mean, holding up, not like this, not like sticking it in
not
someone's
like
face.
this, talk to the
No, but I
hand.
mean, just raising your hand, or some people say just opening your,
Yeah.
opening your mouth and leaning forward a little bit to show, or maybe your finger in the air or something, some sort of like, I'd really like to say something here. That can be good. Okay, let's talk about introversion and shyness, because it's kind of related to this. Introversion and shyness are different. I think people get them mixed up, or they think they're the same. And shyness is just the hesitation to socialize, the discomfort in socializing. Shyness can be improved. So it's about practice. It's about knowing you are empowered to be more assertive. I was going to say aggressive, but I don't mean that. I mean assertive in conversations. And that's a muscle that we have to practice. And there can be a lot that goes on with why you're shy. There's can be a million reasons why you're like that. Introversion is more about your battery being refreshed and recharged when you're by yourself or in a quiet setting. So I just wanted to throw that out there. But it's practice, it's confidence, and there's a lot to that. That can go way down into some psychological stuff that I'm not qualified to even comment on. But the big thing I want to tell people is, if you're in a situation where you're with someone who won't stop talking, or you need to be heard, don't worry about it being impolite to speak up, because what's impolite is people who overpower conversations. That's being impolite.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. All right. Talk to me about drainers and downers, and how do you get away from them?
That was one of my favorite sections to work on, because I think we've all been there. And I think a lot of people avoid social settings because they're afraid of the drainers and downers. So what is a drainer and downer? A drainer or a downer can be someone that is either perpetually negative, or shares way too much information, or makes you feel uncomfortable, or just wears you out for any reason. It could be that they just talk too much. And my entire section there has a spectrum of ways you can deal with that. The least the one that takes the least effort is avoiding people who are super, super negative all the time. And there are all kinds of, there's an entire spectrum that goes all the way to, let's say you're a manager in a company and you have this person who's chronically negative in your meetings and just won't stop whining. They are backbiting. There's a triangulation going on where they're talking to everybody except the person who can help solve the problem. And you take that person to lunch and you bring a big fat notepad and a juicy pen and you just say, we are here to capture every single one of your gripes once and for all. And we're going to assess which ones we can fix and which ones might be your problem or which ones we're just going to have to learn to live with. And that is also a very, it's for the brave. It's for the brave, the very brave and the very patient. But drainers and downers ruin conversations. And sometimes we're the drainers and downers. A good friend of mine who's a very powerful woman here in Austin, I think she owns a bank and she's become the CEO of Austin Women Magazine. And she's someone that is just a joy to be around. And she said she spent 1 week not complaining about anything and said that was the biggest eye opener for her. Like, we as humans in the modern world have gotten so used to finding something to complain about, the big and the small, that we don't realize how often we do it. So
yeah, reminds me of the Queen's expression, never complain, never explain.
Yeah, exactly. My mom's expression was, it doesn't cost a penny to be gracious.
Right.
And that has carried me through a lot of really difficult things in life and kept me from opening my big mouth when I really wanted to blurt out something unkind or destructive. And my mom's words helped me just keep it to myself.
So my last question for you is, who did you write this book for? Who, if our listeners are wondering, more than just talk, Lisa's talking about this massive book. And so I just want to skim over the sections. So section 1, we've got understanding the benefits of good conversation. Section 2 is recognizing the barriers and obstacles. Section 3 is preparing to succeed. Section 4 is building your conversation toolkit. Section 5 is creating your conversation action plan. Section 6 is expanding and polishing your listening skills, which is one that I love. And section 7 is dealing with drainers and downers. Who should buy this book? Who is it intended to help?
It's in the subtitle. The essential guide for anyone who wants to enjoy better conversation. That's the big one. You have to want to. So it could be young people. It could be older people. It could be professionals. It could be, and I hate to say it's for everybody. It's not for everybody. I know plenty of people who do not want to have good conversations. And I don't spend that much.
But how do you know you want to have better conversations? To me, that I don't want to criticize your subtitle.
No, I understand.
To me, it's a little bit vague. So it's, is it for someone who wants to improve their communication skills? Is it for someone who wants to, who feels uncomfortable with just starting up conversation? Like, who is the intended reader of this book?
I would say the intended reader is any of those things. It depends on why. If it's something that's personal, like you're chronically uncomfortable in social situations, but maybe you have a job now where you have to go, it's part of your job to go to networking meetings and be on sales calls, and you're trying to move past the discomfort and learn some skills, because maybe, like I was lucky, I grew up with 2 really good parents who were amazing social role models in different ways. But not everybody had that, and they don't teach this in school. So people who are just feeling like there's a massive gap in their communication skills. It could also be people who are tired of experiencing contentious conversations that are unpleasant, or conversations where they feel like they never get to speak. They're feeling disempowered, and I want to give them the skills. Or someone who wants to move up in the world and become more successful and realizes this is, again, one of the gaps in their knowledge bank. I think anytime we pick out a book, it's because it speaks to us. Not meaning to create a pun there, but that book is speaking to something that we're either fascinated with or we want to learn more about.
I think it is important timing, especially from the perspective of today's youth. there are a lot of people, a lot of young people that have learned to communicate with their thumbs.
Yes.
And so they're texting all the time and they're not comfortable. Like people are breaking up with each other over text message and they're not comfortable having conversation with other people. So, when I look at this book, I feel like, there's got to be a piece in here that helps the remote worker who never has to engage in conversation with other people. Right.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, the benefits of, we are wired for connection. We humans were wired for connection. It used to be about survival. And now we live in this world that allows us to have so much me time, so much time alone. And I think it was some of the writing by a woman named Ruth Whitman. She's British and she came to the United States to live. And she just noticed that we Americans have so much bounty in, our success, our economics, all that, but we're spending too much time alone and we're being encouraged to go within, to always go within to find happiness. And going within is great. You and I both know that. The reflective time is important, but when we do it all the time, we're losing that sense of connection. It's social, it's spiritual, it's intellectual, it's about business and success. The most successful people throughout the years have certainly spent time alone creating and thinking and all that, but they've always had their social groups for inspiration, for comfort, for fun, for getting out of their own heads. I mean, you in your work that you do, helping people get out of their own heads and get out of their own way is a big part of the work you do. And it's through conversation. Coaching.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You can't solve anything with that if you don't have an ability to have a conversation about it.
Boy, yeah, that's so true.
And,
so true. And it's a lost art. But I would say it's not just young people. There are plenty of people who have lived their whole lives not being able to socialize well and have a conversation about something meaningful and productive.
I agree completely. I think the younger generation is by virtue of being on mobile devices all the time, it's going to be harder as they get older and they get into a work environment where they have to have these conversations and they haven't had experience having these conversations. Like, I mean, there's also conflict in conversation. And a lot of people avoid conflict. And if you are someone who would prefer to text than talk, it's conversation avoidant to a certain degree. And
absolutely. And it's not an exchange. It's I'm talking, then you're talking. And how do you know that the listening is happening? How do you know, like, don't you love it when you're in a conversation and someone says to you, Lisa, let's go. You said something, like, it just hit me now. You said something about 10 minutes ago that just flared up in my brain. Like, it just occurred to me how important that was. Can we talk about that a little more? That there's a wonderful dance that happens. And,
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
It's so important to our society and to our civilization and to our culture.
Well, I can't wait to dive deeper into your book and read it. And
I just have to say, I wrote it, these short chapters. I wrote about this in the very beginning in my introduction, or the preface, I guess. It's a book where you can read it front to back if you want to, but you can also pop it open to the chapter or the section that speaks to you first, or, do the whole thing where you're making coffee and you just pop the book open. Like right now, I've just popped it open to the try this exercise about getting strategic about listening, like how to mentally prepare before you go into a meeting, before you go out to coffee, before you go to a party. How are you going to prepare yourself? Like, what questions could I ask? Or how am I going to be in this conversation?
Yeah.
People never do that.
No, they don't. And it's like back to your first book, being intentional.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I love that. Well, thank you, Patti, for joining us today. It's been great to reconnect with you. And I'm looking forward to diving into your book and learning more about this, because I think that, even as a host of a podcast, learning how to facilitate better conversations is a really great skill to have. And so I think it's super valuable.
Absolutely. Well, and same with you. I know you have some books out there, and I know you've just amassed all kinds of wisdom over the years that, I need to tap into. I'm ready for that
Yeah.
wave of prosperity. I mean, I've been visualizing this wave. You know how a big giant wave, well, you're near the ocean, it pulls out, and then there's momentum that just comes.
Yes.
I'm so ready for that part to come through, and need to be ready for that.
Yeah, for sure. Well,
Yeah,
I'm sure this book is going to help with that. So thank you
I
for
hope
being
so.
with us today.
Thank you.
If you're listening and um, you go to my website, you can find all of the details about Patti, where to connect with her. You can find the link to buy her book. You can find the link to buy any of the books that she has recommended today. And if you haven't already joined our Thought Readers community, you can go to thoughtreaders.com and you can register for free to read with us. The next book that we will be reading in Thought Readers is called Necessary Endings by Dr. Henry Cloud, the employees, businesses, and relationships that all of us have to give up in order to move forward.
Wow.
Maybe we need to have a conversation first, but
oh my gosh, where was that book when I was doing the drainers and downers?
there you go. There you go. Eleanor Beaton, who was on my podcast, recommended this book. And I just thought it was great because I think that a lot of times we add, and we don't know when to let go. And so
Yes.
the idea of that book really, really resonated with me. And so it will be our March Thought Readers book. If you'd like to read along with us, Patti, you can join us.
I may do that.
There you go. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you or hear you again next week.